Across the world, in dozens of countries, protesters have taken to the streets. The demands in each country may be unique, but demonstrators are united in frustration with economic disparity and unrealized economic expectations. We begin in Lebanon, where, as special correspondent Jane Ferguson reports, anger at the government crosses religious and political divides.
In Lebanon, defying religious divisions is a revolutionary act in and of itself. This protest movement, less than 10 days old, aims to overcome decades of deep sectarianism that have led to a corrupt government and devastating economic crisis. Corruption and bad leadership have made Lebanon the second most indebted country in the world. It may default on its debts if it doesn't balance its annual budget. The government has tried to claw its way out of the financial disaster by promising reforms, but demanding more taxes. These people have had enough.
I'm an engineering student. Here there's nothing for sure. You have to fight, it's not easy.
This group of young men are angry that there's no future here for them.
The level of unemployment is very high. There's a large brain drain in this country. People graduate and then they try their best to leave because there's no job opportunities here for young men and women.
Lebanon's political system is based on the country's sectarian divisions, with top government posts being shared out between Sunni Muslims, Shia, Druze, and Christians. It is designed to keep the peace, but leads to constant deadlock and corruption. Those sectarian leaders, in place since the 15-year civil war ended in 1990, have become entrenched. All sides exploit sectarian fears to shore up their positions and stay in power, where they enrich themselves. Sami Nader is an economist who has been predicting these protests for months.
There is no separation between business and politics. And the politician either is doing business directly, or now, if it's so obvious, he has around him circles who get the big contracts. It's the case in the electricity sector, it's the case in the waste sectors, and the case on the telecom sector.
A State Department official voiced American support for the protesters, telling Saudi channel Al Arabiya the people of Lebanon are rightly frustrated with their government's inability to prioritize reform. These protests have shaken the country's political elite, with Prime Minister Saad Hariri appearing on television 4 days ago to offer the protesters reforms.
These decisions are not for bartering. They are not to ask you to stop protesting or expressing anger. This is something that you decide. And we are not giving you a deadline. And I will not allow anyone to threaten or intimidate you.
The protesters rejected his offer and instead demanded all political leaders resign. Hariri is a Sunni Muslim, but his rival Hassan Nasrallah from the Shia Hezbollah movement is also rattled by the protests. Hezbollah is not just a military force here, but a political one too. Just as he was due to speak in a televised address today, several hundred of Nasrallah's supporters arrived at the protests, bringing loudspeakers to blast his words over the sounds of the protesters calling for his resignation.
We are scared for the country. We are scared that there might be someone who wants to take Lebanon and create social, security, and political tensions that would lead to civil war.
Nasrallah, whose movement is largely funded and supported by Iran, also claimed the protest movement was an international conspiracy.
Information and data that we got from different sources show that now the situation in Lebanon has entered the target of political instrumentalization internationally and regionally that involves internal actors.
All of you has become a common chant here, telling the Hezbollah supporters that their leader should step down too.
The riot police are separating different protesters. The main protest over here are those who are calling for the fall of the government and all political elites. And just behind this thick layer of riot police are Hezbollah supporters who have come down and caused quite a bit of tension here today.
When we crossed the police line and headed over to speak to them, they told us the protesters should go home. But the police eventually told them to move on instead, and the angry crowd threw sticks and water bottles as they were shoved out of the street. They put up some resistance to the police before giving up and going home. The protesters know that sectarian leaders will not surrender their grip on power here easily.
The current system tries to divide and rule.
Exactly, because they benefit. There's like $300 billion, they steal it from the country.
As night comes, Beirut's city center reclaims the carnival atmosphere that has characterized these protests from the beginning. Across the country, music and dancing have been used by protesters to defy religious divisions and call for elites to step aside. Keeping their movement peaceful and united will be just as great a challenge as creating real political change. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jane Ferguson in Beirut, Lebanon.
And I'm Nick Schifrin with a look at protests 8,000 miles away in Chile. For the past week, Chileans have also filled city streets to create a leaderless, spontaneous movement calling for fundamental reforms. Struggling to feed their families, pots become instruments of frustration. They protest unaffordable health care, low pensions, and what they describe as a government that's lost legitimacy.
This country is unjust. The price of gas and electricity go up, and there is no respect for the people, only enriching business and the government.
Chile has been one of Latin America's most stable countries, touted as a model of regional success. In the 90s and 2000s, prosperity expanded. But it also has one of the world's largest wealth gaps.
People who were very, very poor in the past, who could not think about protesting, now have a whole host of rising expectations. And so it's a crisis in a sense of rising expectations that are not fulfilled on the part of many, many people.
Arturo Valenzuela was the director of Georgetown's Latin American Studies Center and a former senior State Department official who's tracked the country as it modernized and grew richer.
People then become much more aware also of the enormous gaps between the people who are going to private schools, the people who live in really well-off neighborhoods, and so on and so forth. And so the inequality issue, and certainly Chile has become far more unequal.
And this week, that feeling of inequality exploded not only into peaceful protest, but also deadly clashes between government and the governed. At least 17 protesters have been killed and hundreds of police injured in running battles that paralyzed the capital, Santiago. Billionaire President Sebastián Piñera announced increased pensions and minimum wages, improved health care, and reversed the public transit price hike that helped spark the protest.
Hemos escuchado fuerte y clara.
We have heard loud and clear the voice of the people, the voice of the Chileans, who have peacefully expressed their problems, their pains, their shortages, their dreams, and their hopes for a better life.
But he also deployed the military that's targeted protesters and enforced a curfew with batons and smoke grenades. It's the first time that's happened since the dictatorship of General Augusto Pinochet, when 40,000 Chileans were killed, tortured, or imprisoned. And the fear is some of those dark days are returning.
Here we are in militarized Santiago.
On Monday, Miguel Sofia filmed as 9,000 soldiers took over Santiago's streets. And he talked to protesters unafraid of violence or the curfew.
The social discontent is not just about the fare rise for the subway. The only thing the government does is criminalize a situation that, in truth, they have dragged on for so long. Now the military are using the same strategy they used during dictatorship, making fun of people and shooting people in many regions.
Suddenly, an unmarked car screeched toward them.
Están disparando. Shooting, man!
Sofia and reporter Jonathan Franklin screamed that they were press.
Muestra. No, prensa!
The car made a U-turn and fired a few final shots.
Just came and started shooting indiscriminately at people. We had to hide behind this tree, the bark off here. Shotgun blast. You can see different pieces of the tree were blown away. We were fortunately behind the tree, but they were shooting at people.
More coming.
They could have been unmarked police or provocateurs, but this kind of violence in Chile hasn't been seen in decades, and it's not going to stop.
I'm not in favor of violence at all. In fact, I have never liked it, but I think it is the only way that they will listen to us.
Many citizens are probably going to say, well, look, we need to take care of the violent elements right here. But on the other hand, it's quite clear that there is an opening right here for significant abuses of human rights on the part of the authorities when a protest is repressed in that way.
The UN vows to investigate reports of human rights violations, and protesters say the government's concessions are too little, too late. That's the same message from many protesters around the world, not only in Chile and Lebanon, but also in Iraq, in Haiti, and in Ecuador. All these protests have local causes and local politics, but they're all organized online, and protesters object to widespread economic disparity and increased but unrealized expectations. And the underlying problems they demand fixed are not easy for any government to deliver. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.